Unseen places, engineering genius or reckless madness, unreal structures. Nearly 7 of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau crossings 55 kilometers run beneath major shipping lanes. Tor Lightis has no dock. The route reveals how structures remain operational when weather blocks maintenance. Remote terrain does not stop resisting once construction ends. Salt attacks steel. Frost splits rock. Landslides erase access. Deep water turns inspection into an expedition. An impossible-looking structure may be the only practical answer to a cliff, gorge, or estuary that blocks every ordinary route. I care less about the opening day spectacle than the work that follows when cables need replacing and concrete begins to crack. In this video, we examine rarely witnessed structures to judge whether crews can still reach, repair, and trust them after decades of isolation. A working lighthouse occupies a sea pillar with no road, no dock, and almost no place to set down a tool. Tor Lightis stands just offshore from Kora, marking the harbor entrance of Andros, from a summit almost entirely consumed by its narrow white tower. The landing point feeds directly into a stair that curls up the stone. There is no yard, sheltering quay, or spare platform for workers and equipment. Before automation, keepers, fuel, tools, and replacement parts all arrived by boat. Each load then crossed onto slippery rock under Aegean wind and swell. Automation reduced the need for a resident keeper, not the access problem. Salt attacks metalwork, spray enters masonry, and winter storms can postpone an inspection before crews reach the first stair. The original late 19th century lighthouse was lost during the Second World War. In 1994, the present tower returned to the same footprint instead of retreating to easier ground. That choice forced the builders to use the pillar itself as the foundation. Every stair and wall had to fit the summit because geography offered nothing beyond it. That is why Tor Lightis holds my attention. A solitary rock became an Aegean outpost, yet its survival still rests on reachable stairs, repairable walls, and disciplined use of every surface. Wedged beneath a cliff, Asia has room for guests, but none for a road, service yard, or conventional rear wall. Asia occupies a narrow shelf in Switzerland's Alpstein range, with limestone pressed behind it and the ground falling sharply toward the valley. Most arrivals depend on the Ebenalp cable car, followed by a walk through the wild Kirschli caves and down a steep path for roughly 15 to 20 minutes. Food, fuel, and repair materials must negotiate the same mountain. The caves hold evidence of prehistoric use and later sheltered religious hermits. This ledge was serving human need long before the inn became internationally known. Without a delivery truck, every crate and replacement part carries a larger cost in labor and timing. Routine upkeep becomes a transport plan before work can begin. Snow and ice can close access, while runoff and rockfall bear on both trail and building. The inn therefore operates seasonally, when supplies, staff, and repairs can move with less risk. The overhang blocks some weather, but it also channels water and prevents easy expansion. Asia answers by stretching along the ledge, fitting its rooms and roofline to the available rock. Its restraint is the reason it lasts. The inn yields space to the cliff and schedules work by the mountain seasons. For more than a century, one room has held to a near-vertical dolomite wall, with almost nowhere for a repair crew to stand. Buffa di Perero sits beneath an overhang on Monte Cristallo, nearly 2,800 meters high. One narrow recess stands between its brick and timber room and open exposure. Built during the First World War, it belonged to a high-altitude military landscape of paths, ladders, cables, and shelters. Italian troops moved tools and materials up steep rock without an accessible building platform. Today, the Ivano di Bona via Ferrata follows part of that route. Fixed cables and exposed traverses still make access a physical operation rather than a casual approach. This is not a staffed mountain hut. It has no road, running water, or dependable emergency support, while its worn interior offers only basic cover. Cold, sudden storms, snow, lightning, and repeated freezing and thawing keep pressing the structure. The cliff leaves almost no room to inspect damage or secure repairs. Scale gives no advantage here. The shelter lasts because its builders occupied the only recess that breaks the wind on an otherwise near-vertical face. That is what holds my attention. Every beam and brick accepts a cliff that permits no error. A monastery can survive 6 centuries above open ground, yet every load of food must still defeat the cliff. At Meteora, some sanctuaries stand more than 300 meters above the cliff bases, fixed to narrow pillars of conglomerate and sandstone. Erosion made the towers. From the 14th century, builders turned their summits into secure communities, deliberately cut off from ordinary life. Roughly 24 monasteries once occupied this landscape. 6 remain active, and their survival rests on a hard fact. Isolation must still allow supply and repair. Without roads or ramps, timber, stone, food, manuscripts, and people rose in baskets and rope nets. Removable ladders then closed the route. Every room had to negotiate the rock. Chapels, kitchens, cells, terraces, and water storage compressed onto irregular crowns with almost no level ground. Carved steps, bridges, and better paths later reduced the strain. Service hoists remain because vehicles still cannot reach every working edge. Moisture, weathering, earthquakes, and visitor pressure keep conservation in motion. A worn stair becomes a transport operation before repair begins. That is Meteora's hidden discipline. Sacred isolation endures only because access, lifting, and maintenance never stop. Rain gives Sumela its green seclusion, while steadily weakening the fractured cliff that carries the monastery. Sumela stands around 1,200 meters above sea level in Turkey's Altındere Valley, where frequent rain feeds both dense vegetation and constant erosion. There is no level campus behind the facade. Chapels, cells, kitchens, stores, and an aqueduct gather around a cave church, each space forced into the rock wall. Much of the surviving complex grew under the empire of Trebizond. Its frescoed interiors were reached through forest paths, steep slopes, and stairs rather than a broad road. That approach did more than preserve seclusion. It set the terms for every beam, food load, and repair tool that had to reach the monastery. Rain enters cracks, moisture works through masonry, and erosion raises the risk of rockfall where buildings and cliff meet. Modern stabilization repeats the oldest construction problem: secure a vertical complex to fractured stone without stripping away the isolated position that defined it. I am drawn to Sumela because its hidden achievement is practical, not decorative. Monastic life clings to this cliff only through constant control of water, rock, and access. A monastery 900 meters above the Paro Valley floor has no road to its door. Taktsang, known as Tiger's Nest, sits at roughly 3,100 meters above sea level, reached only by a steep mountain trail. Altitude, rain, and fog govern how people, food, tools, and building material reach the ledges. The approach is not scenery, it is the first stage of every task. The present monastery was established in the late 17th century around sacred caves linked by tradition to Guru Padmasambhava. With almost no level construction ground, white buildings, stairs, and bridges occupy separate ledges. The complex joins those fragments without flattening the cliff. Separate ledges make internal movement part of upkeep. A repaired roof or wall must still be reached across the complex's stairs and bridges. A major fire in the late 1990s forced extensive rebuilding. The recovery proved that remoteness cannot excuse weakness. Materials and skilled work still had to reach the cliff. Weather keeps testing those repairs. Rain attacks surfaces, fog restricts movement, and altitude narrows the margin for each delivery and inspection. Taktsang's hidden logic is clear. The mountain path is part of the architecture, preserving isolation while keeping the monastery reachable enough to endure. The roofs of Tayun Mountain seem to balance on a strip of granite too narrow for a temple complex. Instead of spreading around broad courtyards, its halls, gates, towers, and summit shrine follow the little rock available above Shanxi's forested valleys. That constraint controls every decision. Stone bases pin timber frames close to the drop, while ridge stairs and narrow paths control the final approach. I keep returning to one practical question. How was anything built here before modern access? Every tile, beam, bell, water jar, and food load had to move upward by human effort. Isolation did not end once construction stopped. Wind pulls at roofs, lightning, snow, and repeated freezing and thawing work at stone, timber, and joints. Maintenance is never a background task. A loose tile or weakened beam triggers a supply operation across terrain with little storage and no easy movement. Modern walkways reduce part of that burden, but they also reveal the older achievement. Access itself had to be engineered before any shrine could remain usable. Fog can erase the valleys and make the roofs appear to rest on almost no ground. That is Taiyun's deeper feat. Timber halls reached a narrow granite blade, then generations kept the route open for repair, supplies, and worship. Meiteora holds thousands of fragile figures inside a cliff that steadily works against their preservation. Nearly 200 caves and more than 7,000 Buddhist sculptures occupy its near-vertical face, far above the wooded hills near Tian Shui. Work began around the late 4th or early 5th century, then continued under successive dynasties. The cliff became both sacred enclosure and construction site. But the mountain did not provide firm stone for fine carving. Its sandstone is soft and coarse. So many figures were modeled in clay over supports rather than cut directly from the rock. The harder burden came afterward. Creating the art required reach. Preserving it demands repeated return to the same exposed face. Narrow walkways, stairs, and platforms make that access possible above the valley. They also concentrate every inspection, repair, and movement of materials onto a thin route. Rain and humidity press into entrances and paintings. Wind, winter snow, earthquakes, and falling rock can damage both the caves and the paths needed to reach them. That makes Meiteora more than an ancient gallery. Its endurance depends on keeping the cliff reachable, because art isolated from repair cannot be protected for long. A 5th century capital made every approach to its summit a controlled climb up a monolith. Sigiriya rises about 180 meters above Sri Lanka's central plains, with palace platforms and cisterns at the summit. In the 5th century, King Kasyapa I joined gardens, pools, channels, fountains, terraces, frescoes, and summit structures into one fortified capital. The achievement was not height alone. The route narrowed movement, slowed the climb, and exposed every approach from the plain. Steep rock gardens and confined passages controlled the approach. Near the top, the final climb passed between the surviving brick claws of a monumental lion. Beyond them stood palace platforms and cisterns. The summit offered long views and a natural barrier, but every advantage created a burden below. Builders had to raise materials roughly 180 meters and secure water through dry seasons. Once completed, the capital still depended on steep access for supplies, upkeep, and control. I find that burden more revealing than the summit walls. Workers inherited the steep route for every repair and supply load. After its capital role ended, the difficult site continued as a monastic enclosure. Sigiriya's lasting design is the climb itself. Each narrow passage turned ascent into control, then remained usable after the capital changed purpose. A fortress vanishes into a mountain, leaving only one wall fully exposed. Prejama Castle occupies a karst cave beneath a cliff more than 120 meters high. Medieval defenses stood here before the present Renaissance castle was completed in the 16th century. Builders fitted chambers, walls, and stairs around stone they could not remove. The mountain encloses the rear and sides, while the outward face carries the visible architecture. The cave is foundation, rear wall, supply corridor, and defensive depth at once. Behind the rooms, passages join a cave network, extending more than 14 kilometers. The hidden routes allowed water, food, and people to move beyond the sealed frontage. Protection came with a permanent burden. Cold air, darkness, damp stone, uneven floors, and drainage had to be managed inside a castle that could never follow a symmetrical plan. Rooms and defenses climb through the rock in broken steps. Every repair must still contend with narrow access, irregular surfaces, and moisture moving through the cave. What draws me to Prejama is not camouflage, but dependence. Remove the cave, and the castle loses the structure that made it workable. Prejama endures because the mountain was never treated as an obstacle. It was built into the fortress. The entrance to this fortress is not a gate, it is an entire mountain road. Berg Hochostowitz rises about 160 meters above Carinthia, and the only climbing route passes through 14 fortified gates. The Kievan-Hüller family developed much of this defense in the late 16th century when the region faced Ottoman raids. Elevation became raw material. Tight turns slow every approach and repeatedly place the road beneath defenders above. Numbers lose their force where the path narrows and the slope controls movement. The gates were not repeated decorations. Heavy doors, drawbridges, portcullises, guarded positions, and narrow passages made every section a different obstacle. The road divides any advance into 14 separate tests. Clearing one gate only reveals another barrier farther uphill, with no open ground for regrouping. The same geometry also punished construction and upkeep. Stone, timber, supplies, and later repair crews all had to follow the constrained road designed to resist easy access. No successful direct capture is documented. That record matters, but the deeper achievement is practical. One exposed route could be watched, maintained, and defended in layers. What holds my attention is the road itself. Hochostowitz made its isolated position dependable by turning the difficult way in into the fortress's strongest structure. A village cut a road through solid cliff because the old path could never easily carry the weight of daily life. In 1977, Guoliang's villagers completed a tunnel more than a kilometer long through the exposed Taihang cliffs. Guoliang sits high above the valley, divided from it by red-brown cliffs and deep ravines. Geography did not merely hide the village, It restricted every load moving in or out. For generations, transport depended on a steep stair route. Food, tools, building materials, and medical access all had to negotiate a path built for feet, not vehicles. During the 1970s, villagers began cutting directly through the mountain with hand tools, drills, and explosives. The workforce came from the village, and each meter opened space for a road where the cliff had allowed none. Irregular openings served two hard needs. They admitted light and gave rubble a route out. Today, those same cuts expose abrupt views into the gorge, viewpoints created by construction rather than tourism. The tunnel never became an ordinary road. A rough ceiling, narrow roadway, blind curves, fog, winter ice, and rockfall risk still press against reliable passage. Guoliang's villagers did not accept isolation as permanent. They carved a working road into the cliff. A route to school once hung from a cliff on ladders of bamboo and wood. In 2016, Atelier's Yi community received a steel stairway of more than 2,500 steps, linking its mountain home in Sichuan to the valley below. Before that replacement, reaching school, markets, healthcare, or onward transport meant committing to the same steep ladder route. An ordinary errand could consume the strength and planning of a mountain expedition. Rain and fog did more than hide the cliff. They changed grip, visibility, timing, and the margin for error for every resident moving between village and valley. The cost is clearest in a child's school day. Geography made one dangerous route a duty shared by the entire community. Steel reduced the risk, but it did not flatten the mountain. More than 2,500 steps still demand time, balance, and endurance before the road network can even begin to help. Isolation also changes the meaning of upkeep. Even a damaged tread would be no minor inconvenience when the staircase carries access to medicine, trade, and education. Later, relocation changed conditions for many families, but Atulier's cliff remains a hard record. Without dependable access, every essential service stays remote. A fortress rises here with almost no fortress left, only a bare rock pinnacle and a staircase cut into its upper face. Kalavantin Durg reaches nearly 700 meters above sea level in Maharashtra's Western Ghats, yet its final approach can demand hands as much as feet. Routes commonly begin at Thakurwadi and rise toward Prabalmachi. That first climb is only preparation for the narrower, irregular steps above. Near the summit, conventional walls and rooms barely define the place. The remaining engineering is more severe, rock removed just deeply enough to give the body a line upward. Monsoon months cover the Ghats with vegetation and waterfalls, but they also load the route with wet stone, mud, fog, and storms. Grip becomes the governing fact. The dry season does not make the pinnacle gentle. Heat and limited shade replace slippery rock with another test of pacing and endurance. What draws me to Kalavantin Durg is its refusal to behave like a monument. It must be climbed, not merely visited, because the route and the structure are inseparable. Every cut step must keep doing its work under rain, heat, mud, and repeated foot pressure. Here, access is not an approach to the fort. It is the fort's defining structure. Two summits can be reached by cable car, yet Huashan still measures access in rock-cut stairs and iron chains. Above Huayin in Shanxi, 5 granite summits divide the mountain. South Peak reaches nearly 2,200 meters, with deep ravines cutting between the ridges. Uplift and erosion formed this ground long before builders cut into it. Old pilgrimage routes used direct measures, steps carved into rock and iron chains beside near vertical sections. Temples, shrines, and hermitages occupy ledges with almost no usable ground. Their foundations do not master the slope. They adjust to whatever support the granite allows. Modern access changes the first stage, not the mountain itself. Cable cars reach the north and west peaks, but exposed stairways still carry movement between the ridges. The famous plank walk is only a short, optional section used with a harness. Treating it as the whole story misses the harder engineering, the exposed connection between sole, step, chain, and rock. Rain, ice, wind, fatigue, and crowds can change conditions quickly. On near vertical granite, dependable access means every carved tread and fixed handhold must remain ready for the next load. Huashan has been made reachable, never tamed. Every stair and chain keeps proving the difference. A power station access path became a public attraction without hiding the broken structure it replaced. Its narrowest cliffside section is roughly 1 meter wide, about 100 meters above the Guadalhorce River. Early in the 20th century, workers needed access between the Gaitanejo and El Chorro hydroelectric works inside the Gaitanes Gorge. The builders drilled steel supports into the cliff and laid concrete where ordinary construction had no ground to stand on. The King's Little Path became associated with King Alfonso XIII after his 1921 hydroelectric project visit. Then, water entered the concrete, steel corroded, and neglected sections broke away. By 2001, public danger and deep structural loss forced closure. The answer was not to erase the old route. A timber and steel walkway reopened in 2015, generally fixed just above the damaged concrete and exposed beams. That separation is the real engineering argument. The new deck controls movement with helmets, limited entry, and one-way travel, while the gorge still controls every anchor, inspection, and repair. Heat, wind, falling rock exposure, and difficult access do not disappear because the path has reopened. They return in every maintenance shift and every material carried into the gorge. Here, industrial access became the spectacle because engineers kept it reachable and repairable above the river. "14 steel steps are enough to make a mountain appear to end in open air. At roughly 2,700 meters, they descend beyond a Dockstein cliff to a glass platform above a drop of nearly 400 meters. Near the Hunnerkogel cable car station, this is a controlled alpine outpost, not a wilderness route. That access softens the journey, not the mountain. Wind, rime ice, lightning, sudden cloud, snow, and repeated freezing and thawing keep working on the steel and its anchors. The platform has no legs, running hundreds of meters down the slope. Cantilevered steel members drive the weight of people, snow, glass, and the structure itself back into rock. The visual connection is deliberately thin. The physical connection cannot be. Anchors must share loads, capacity must stay controlled, and every exposed joint must remain open to inspection. The contradiction governs operations. The attraction depends on access, yet safety may require closure when alpine conditions outrun the structure's limits. Here, a few steel steps create absolute exposure only because crews can monitor, reach, and secure what the mountain keeps testing. An 11-meter overhang makes more than 1,000 meters of mountain impossible to ignore. At Ravna Vlashka, roughly 1,200 meters above sea level, the Biokovo skywalk carries its outer curve beyond the cliff with no columns beneath it. Opened in 2020, the horseshoe platform occupies a hard edge of Croatia's Biokovo Massif, where pale karst drops toward the Adriatic coast and islands. Its concrete and steel do not defeat that edge. Cantilevered members carry the platform's weight and visitor loads back into foundations anchored to the mountain. Laminated glass panels then remove the last visual shield. Fractured limestone remains visible underfoot, while transparent barriers preserve the long drop toward the sea. Reaching this structure is part of the engineering burden. The narrow mountain road winds through a protected nature park, restricting traffic and complicating every delivery of construction or maintenance equipment. Exposure continues after opening. Downslope and bora winds press the frame. Lightning, heat, winter ice, and temperature shifts work differently on steel, concrete, and glass. After opening, every inspection still begins with access along that narrow road. Biokovo does not hide altitude. Road access and anchored foundations make that exposure inspectable, repairable, and dependable. A footpath barely wider than a doorway demands the structural discipline of a major transport bridge. Sky Bridge. 721 crosses more than 700 meters of the Mlinsky Stream Valley and hangs nearly 100 meters above the ground. The deck is just over 1 meter wide, so movement across it runs in one direction rather than forcing large groups to meet in the center. At this width, crowd control is not a courtesy. It is part of the bridge's operation. No pier supports the center. Main cables pull the vertical load into anchorages on opposing slopes, while stabilizing cables and a restrained deck limit sideways sway and twisting. The bridge cannot behave like rigid ground. Wind must move it, but only within limits the steel can safely absorb. Sensors, inspections, capacity rules, and weather closures turn that movement into something controlled and measurable. Maintenance begins with access, because every cable, joint, and anchor sits over steep, forested terrain. Building it meant hauling cable, steel, and equipment into mountain ground, where snow shortens the working season. That is its real audacity. A footpath built like transport infrastructure, because isolation leaves no room for casual engineering. Half a meter of steel grating keeps an alpine hiking route continuous across nearly half a kilometer of empty space. The Charles Kuonan suspension bridge crosses the Grabengufa ravine near Randa, with open steel grating as much as 85 meters above the ground. It exists because the earlier bridge was damaged by rockfall and closed. Hikers were pushed onto a difficult detour through unstable terrain. The replacement was set higher and anchored directly into bedrock on both slopes. No pier stands in the ravine. Main cables carry the load. Stabilizing cables and dampers restrain oscillation from wind and synchronized footsteps. The mesh deck gives crosswinds less surface to press against, but it also removes any illusion of solid ground. On a walkway this narrow, each step depends openly on cable tension. Cable and deck sections were assembled in roughly 10 weeks inside the short alpine working season. Speed mattered because snow could shut the site again. Opening the bridge did not end the mountain's claim on it. Lightning, rockfall, corrosion, snow, anchor condition, and cable tension still govern inspections and seasonal access. The bridge's real measure is restored continuity. The route remains open only while crews monitor the rockfall exposure that closed its predecessor. A railway built to reach the Adriatic had to place ordinary trains 200 meters above a remote Montenegrin stream. Nearly 500 meters long, the Mala Rijeka viaduct rests on 5 concrete piers. The tallest rises more than 130 meters. Completed in 1973, it was then the highest railway viaduct in the world. The line linked the inland Balkans with Montenegro's Adriatic port through broken mountain terrain. The decision was extreme because the valley offered little level ground for staging. Crews had to set foundations and lift material where ordinary access was scarce. Height multiplied every problem. Wind pressed harder on lifted sections, and small alignment errors grew more serious as the concrete rose. Once trains began running, the load never became simple. Concentrated axle weight, braking force, vibration, and repeated traffic all had to pass without letting the track drift out of line. Heat expands the long deck, and cold contracts it. Bearings and steelwork must absorb that movement, while rails remain aligned across the valley. Inspection is therefore an engineering operation of its own. Crews need access to bearings, steel, and pier surfaces high above the stream. That near-impossible decision endures in concrete. Trains still cross decades later, because crews can reach the structure and hold the rails to tolerance. A transparent floor carries crowds across open space nearly 300 meters above a valley. The crossing runs about 430 meters between the sandstone pillars of Hunan's Guoliang landscape, yet it is only about 6 meters wide. The bridge, designed by Haim Dotan and opened in 2016, does not merely cross difficult ground. Its glass deck forces the gorge into the journey. Depth remains visible beneath every step. Most bridges conceal the void behind asphalt and rails. This one turns exposure into part of its working surface. That visual shock rests on hard structure. Steel carries the deck, while the bridge grips cliff edges where broad, ordinary foundations are unavailable. Isolation changes the meaning of reliability. Mountain weather can halt operations, and every inspection or repair must reach a narrow structure suspended over rugged terrain. Large visitor loads add another pressure. The bridge must control movement across a deck, whose transparency makes a routine crossing feel physically exposed. The canyon supplies the depth, but it also dictates the engineering. Long span, limited anchoring ground, changing weather, and difficult access. Zhangjiajie's achievement is not glass alone. It is keeping this exposed bridge reachable and dependable while weather and terrain press against every panel and anchor. A public elevator climbs a sandstone cliff where an ordinary shaft should have no place to stand. The Guoliang elevator rises about 326 meters from forested valley to plateau, using 3 double-deck cars fixed against a near-vertical rock wall. That height solves a geographic problem rather than a theatrical one. A road or long stair route through this protected landscape would be far more disruptive and difficult. The lift turns the cliff into a vertical corridor. Passengers enter near the forest floor. Then the exposed upper section carries them beside the stone pillars of Guoliang. What holds my attention is the bargain behind that shortcut. A long climb, compressed into one lift ride, still depends on anchors, machinery, and access against unforgiving rock. Construction had to respect the cliff and the protected terrain. Operation must also absorb heavy visitor demand without treating the mountain as an ordinary building site. Weather reaches the exposed section directly. Maintenance cannot begin from a convenient street. Equipment must reach the places where the vertical wall permits access. That is the real measure of Guoliang. Its 3 cars matter only if the cliff anchors and operating equipment remain dependable under repeated use. More than 230 meters above Macau, a public walkway removes both glass and handrails from its outer edge. The skywalk circles the tower on an open route less than 2 meters wide, while the concrete core rises nearly 340 meters above the city and waterfront. The absence creates the sensation, but restraint makes it possible. Each participant wears a full-body harness linked to a moving safety line on an overhead track. That track converts exposure into controlled movement around the tower's circumference. The line travels with the participant, while the structure limits uncontrolled motion at the edge. Macau is urban, but the outer work zone is isolated by height. Staff control spacing, tether transitions, weather limits, and emergencies rather than leaving judgment to participants. At this height, wind is not background noise. It loads the exposed perimeter, while rain can reduce grip and force inspection or temporary closure. Maintenance must keep the stable concrete tower and its mobile restraint equipment reliable together, including every attachment around the exposed observation level. Height can remain uncovered only while crews reach every harness, line, track section, and connection before wind or repeated use turns wear into failure. A cathedral here does not stand beside a gorge. It rests on a bridge above a working river. Nearly 3,000 meters above sea level, Las Lajas Sanctuary joins the walls of the Guaitara Gorge near Colombia's border with Ecuador. The present neo-Gothic basilica took shape over more than 3 decades, ending in the late 1940s. Earlier chapels had been built around a revered image on the canyon rock. The bridge is not an approach added later. It is the base. Arches lock the sanctuary to opposing rock faces while the river continues below. Paths and stairs descend from the plateau, making the canyon's depth part of every approach. Access here is not separate from ritual. That union of ritual and load-bearing work is what holds my attention. The crossing accepts slope, height, and empty space instead of hiding them. Moisture settles on dark stone. Waterfalls and the river keep this steep site wet, loud, and difficult to reach for inspection or repair. That is the harder test. An arch can be built once. Dependable access must be preserved while gravity, water, and restricted ground keep applying pressure. At Las Lajas, bridge and basilica make an isolated canyon part of worship and make engineering carry the ritual for decades. This bridge finished crossing the bay only once. The sea has tested it every day since. For more than 6 kilometers off Dalian, Qinghai Bay Bridge carries urban traffic across water that once forced movement around a curved shoreline. Most of the route repeats one hard answer: stable marine foundations across the seabed. Then the design changes, opening a larger suspended span so boats can keep using the navigation channel. Those two forms solve the visible crossing. The hidden contest begins at the surface, where chloride-rich spray and humidity work into concrete, steel, cables, bearings, and joints. Dense concrete slows seawater before it reaches reinforcing steel. Protective coatings, sealed details, and drainage buy time, but none can remove salt from the equation. Wind moves the long deck. Traffic adds vibration, thermal expansion works the connections, and waves and currents keep loading dozens of supports below. The city is close, but every offshore repair is isolated by water. Crews need boats or specialized platforms to inspect, repaint, seal, and repair defects before salt widens the damage. That burden decides whether the crossing stays dependable. For Zhangjiajie Bay Bridge, crossing the sea is never finished. Maintenance must answer it every day. One sea crossing vanishes beneath the water, so deep water shipping above can keep moving. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge runs 55 kilometers across the Pearl River estuary, linking 3 cities with bridges, artificial islands, and nearly 7 kilometers of submerged tunnel. Opened in 2018, the route does not rely on one structural answer. It changes form wherever navigation and deep water demand different clearance. The most radical change occurs far from shore. Prefabricated tunnel elements form an immersed tube beneath the shipping lanes, while artificial islands connect it to the bridge decks. That arrangement preserves deep water movement overhead, but multiplies the parts that must remain dependable. Marine foundations, tunnel joints, bridge bearings, and road connections all face different loads. Typhoons, waves, and saltwater press the exposed route. Heavy regional traffic loads it from above, while corrosion and motion strain details far from shore. I am struck less by total length than by the access problem it creates. Inspection and repair must follow a road that shifts from elevated span to island ground to a sealed passage below the estuary. Here, connecting 3 cities required more than a bridge. It required islands and a tunnel that keep the route reachable across an active estuary. A dam on the Yellow River must create an artificial flood to keep its own flood control capacity working. For more than 2 decades, coordinated water and sediment releases have driven muddy water through deep outlets at thousands of cubic meters per second. The river arrives from the lowest plateau, carrying soil that erodes easily. When the reservoir slows that flow, suspended material drops and begins occupying the space meant for water. Enough silt can reduce storage, obstruct outlets, and weaken flood regulation. The dam therefore survives by moving part of the burden onward. Operators must balance reservoir level, incoming flow, gate capacity, downstream channel conditions, and warnings for riverside communities and workers. Nothing about the release is accidental. The jets accelerate the river, scour deposited silt from parts of the channel, and carry it farther toward the sea. The huge plumes are the visible cost of preserving control. What grips me is the contradiction. The discharge looks alarming because it must counter the geography that steadily reduces the dam's usefulness. It cannot end the Yellow River's sediment problem, and altered pulses still affect habitats and water use. Xiaolangdi remains dependable only because crews repeatedly reach its machinery, coordinate the gates, and force the accumulating earth downstream. One concrete barrier does not merely cross the Yangtze, it resets when the river may rise, fall, generate power, and carry ships. More than 2 kilometers long and nearly 200 meters high, Three Gorges contains the world's largest hydroelectric station by installed capacity, more than 20 gigawatts. The structure stores part of the Yangtze's seasonal floodwater. Operators lower reservoir levels to preserve room for summer floods, then retain more water in other seasons for electricity and navigation. That control reaches hundreds of kilometers upstream. It changes current, depth, sediment movement, and the working timetable of China's longest river. A 5-stage lock and a large ship lift solve the barrier the dam itself creates. Vessels do not simply pass the site, they are transferred across a height difference. Control at this scale moved pressure elsewhere. More than 1 million people were relocated. Cities and archaeological sites were inundated, while reservoir slopes remain exposed to erosion and landslide pressure. Trapped sediment, altered fish migration, and changed downstream flow demand constant measurement. Access to turbines, gates, locks, and unstable slopes is part of the structure's real size. The revealing fact is not the tiny calculated shift in Earth's rotation. Dependability here is a daily redistribution of water, ships, power, sediment, and risk along the Yangtze. A concrete wall that looks too thin for its gorge holds back a mountain reservoir by pushing its load sideways. Bhutan's double curvature arch rises nearly 300 meters above the Jinsha River, on the border between Sichuan and Yunnan. The curve sends reservoir pressure into the canyon walls rather than a wide valley floor. Here, the narrow site is not just an obstacle, it becomes part of the structure carrying the load. Inside, 16 generating units provide 16 gigawatts of installed capacity, placing Bhutan among the world's largest hydropower stations. Building it required river diversion, high-volume concrete placement, and transport across a steep mountainside. Each operation had to feed a work zone where ordinary access was already difficult. Temperature control was structural work. Engineers also tracked seismic behavior closely because the arch depends on maintaining its designed shape against the gorge. The construction problem does not disappear when generation begins. Inspection crews, repair equipment, and replacement parts still have to reach machinery held inside a steep, confined canyon. At the largest scale, the paradox remains. Strength is not self-sufficiency. Even Bhutan lasts only while crews can reach its machinery and verify the gorge carrying its load. Isolation changes what engineering success means. Opening day proves that concrete, steel, and human effort reached the site. It does not prove that the work can endure there. That verdict comes later, through access shafts kept clear, anchors tested, drainage restored, and worn parts replaced before exposure compounds the strain. I believe the boldest structure is not the one that appears to defy a mountain or sea. It is the one whose crews can still reach every critical joint when weather closes in and terrain resists them. This distinction will matter more as nations push infrastructure into deeper water steeper valleys, and less stable ground. Monumental construction can extend power across geography. Long-term control decides whether that power remains useful or becomes a burden inherited by the next generation. Join the next investigation and look past impossible silhouettes to the access roads, inspection routes, repair crews, and safeguards that keep extreme structures reachable and secure.